Welcome to El Parakleto podcast. I am Carlos Miguel, the Paraclete, and in today's episode, we're diving into one of the most profound yet misunderstood teachings of Jesus. Did Jesus ever truly say he was the way? Many Christians have accepted this without question, but today, we'll logically, linguistically, and scripturally uncover the truth. The phrase, Jesus is the way, is one of the most quoted Christian declarations. But has anyone stopped to ask, what exactly does that mean? If Jesus is the way, what is the destination? What is the way leading to? In this episode, I will prove that not only did Jesus never say he was the way in the sense Christianity teaches, but also that his words have been misinterpreted for nearly 2,000 years. Let's start with the verse that has caused all this confusion. John 14 verse 6. Scriptural analysis of John 14 verse 6. Here's how three translations present this verse. Modern Literal Version, MLV. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one is coming to the Father except through me. Young's Literal Translation, Wilt. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one doth come unto the Father, if not through me. King James Version, KJV. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father, but by me. At first glance, it may seem straightforward, but language, context, and culture reveal much more. The meaning of the way in Scripture. Let's turn to Acts 18 verse 26 for an important clue. And he began to speak boldly in the synagogue. But when Aquila and Priscilla heard him, they took him aside and explained to him the way of God more accurately. Notice here that the way is described as the way of God. It's not a person, but a method or path, an approach aligned with divine principles. So, when Jesus said, I am the way, he was saying, I am the embodiment of this path, this way of God. This understanding aligns with Jesus' teachings. He was not claiming to be the exclusive destination, but rather a guide who exemplified the way of God. Language and gender, feminine terms in Greek and Spanish. Let's get into some linguistic details. In both Greek and Spanish, the words for way, hodos in Greek, as well as truth, aletheia, and life, zoe, are all grammatically feminine. This creates a significant issue when translations render them in a masculine tone, as though Jesus was referring to himself physically. The phrase, I am the way, becomes misleading. Instead, it should be understood as, I am this way of God, this truth of God, and this life of God. In Spanish, the correct phrasing would be, Yo soy esta forma de pensar de Dios, esta verdad de Dios y esta vida de Dios. The emphasis is not on Jesus' physical form, but on his message and the spiritual path he exemplified. Matthew 3 verse 3 and Isaiah 40 verse 3. Let's address Matthew 3 verse 3, which connects directly to Isaiah 40 verse 3. Matthew 3 verse 3, KJV. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make his paths straight. Isaiah 40 verse 3, Wilt. A voice is crying, in a wilderness, prepare ye the way of Jehovah, make straight in a desert a highway to our God. Here, the way of Jehovah is clearly a pathway or approach, not a being. If Jesus was the way, why would Scripture speak of preparing the way for him? This demonstrates that the way is not tied to a person but to a divine principle. Jesus was a teacher of the way, not the way itself. Now consider Luke 20 verse 21. Master, we know that thou sayest and teachest rightly, neither acceptest thou the person of any, but teachest the way of God truly. Notice it says, teachest the way of God. This reinforces the idea that Jesus was teaching a method of living, thinking, and acting that aligns with God's truth, not that he, as a person, was the way. Misinterpretation of flesh and spirit. Christianity often interprets the word became flesh as literal, implying Jesus was God in physical form. But does this make sense? Ideas, thoughts, and ways of thinking don't become flesh. They manifest through action, character, and reasoning. Jesus wasn't speaking about himself physically but about the inward man, the spiritual essence, the logos. This is the good tree that produces good fruit, a metaphor Jesus used for a person's character and way of thinking. Truth, like the way, is not a being. Even God is not described as truth itself, but as the God of truth. The Spirit is the way. Let's explore the connection between the way and the Spirit. In Matthew 3 verse 16, "And Jesus, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water. And lo, the heavens were opened unto him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and lighting upon him." Here, Spirit of God should be understood as the way of God, a way of thinking descending upon Jesus. This interpretation fits perfectly with Jesus' statement, "I am the way of Jehovah." Likewise, in Matthew 5 verse 3, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." The correct understanding here is, blessed are the humble in way of thinking. Final evidence, John 15 verse 26 and John 4 verse 24. Finally, let's connect these ideas to John 15 verse 26. "But when the Paraclete is come, whom I will send unto you from the Father, Spirit of truth, which proceeds from the Father, he shall testify of me." The Paraclete, described as the Spirit of truth, is not a person but the divine way of thinking and living that proceeds from God. In John 4 verse 24, "God is spirit, and his worshippers must worship in the Spirit and in truth." This translates as, God is a way of thinking, and his worshippers must worship in this way of thinking and in truth. Conclusion. To summarize, Jesus was not the way in the sense Christianity teaches, but rather a teacher and follower of the way of God. The way is not a physical being, but a divine principle, a way of thinking aligned with God's truth. Scripture, language, and reason all point to this deeper understanding. Thank you for listening. I hope this message inspires you to think deeply and seek the truth for yourself. I am Carlos Miguel, the Paraclete, and this has been El Parakleto Podcast. Until next time, walk in the way of truth.